Traveling can be a great time for everybody. I've traveled all over the world with my friends and family, and we always have a good time, but there are risks. Between 2009 and 2014, according to Newswise, 3,000 UK citizens went missing in foreign countries. I see people and I have friends who travel. I see people who travel all the time when I travel, and I talk to them, and they talk about the fun that they have, and they talk about the good times they're having, but they never talk about the risks. They never plan for the risks because safety is always paramount and we always have to be ready. I have had many situations where I wasn't ready and I didn't have a plan while I was traveling. So I have come up with a plan for myself. I have I always go through scenarios in my head on how I should react in case something happens, in case something dangerous happens. How will I react to that? Defensive driving and having those skills is something that I had to teach myself so that I could move around countries quickly. Listening to the locals, building relationships with them when I was staying in countries long term was something that I always did, and it's something that everybody should do because they always get the news before everyone else. Before you travel, you need to do research on that country. And you can do the normal research, but you have to do more in depth research about where the borders are, where the crossings are, and then apply for visas for countries that are next to that country. So, in case you need to escape across the border, you already have a visa in hand and it won't be difficult for you. Because if you try to escape without a visa, there are many countries, when you go to the remote part of the border, they won't let you across. You always need to know where the nearest airport is. So when you fly in, look at the routes, memorize the routes, do some driving around and memorize the routes so that you can build a plan on how you will get to the airport if you can, and then always have cash on you so that when you get there, if the credit card machine isn't working, you can use the cash to buy a plane ticket to get out. According to foreignpolicy.com, when they interviewed lawmakers in the U.S., there were at least 14,000 U.S. citizens stuck in Afghanistan. And they had no plan on how to get out, except for the plan that we all saw on the news, which was chaos. That was their plan. They hadn't planned for any of this that took place there, which was a shame because I'm sure many of them lost their lives. And we don't want that to happen to us while we're traveling. You need to know how you will react if something happens, such as, let's say, one of your friends maybe accidentally gets into a situation that is not good, could be an accident where somebody dies. You need to have a plan on how you will react, how you will deal with that situation ahead of time. Study the laws of that country so that you know what you can do to make things easier for yourselves. There was a study done that I thought was very interesting, and it kind of relates to this, where it was by Heath and Cole in March 2005. It was published in journals Sage Pub, and the study went over how people reacted to mad cow disease. So when they use the normal name mad cow disease in the news and explained it, people were scared and they stopped eating meat and they did things to protect themselves. But when they used the scientific name for mad cow disease, people didn't care and they would eat meat. They thought everything was okay. And we see this mindset, and I've seen this mindset in a lot of people who live overseas for a period of time. They see a problem over here, they see a problem over there, they might see a riot over here, and they think, oh, everything's okay, that's normal, it happens, it's not a big deal. And so they're never prepared because they're just used to the way the media portrays it. And the media portrays it as maybe not being so bad. I had a friend who was in a situation in Libya, and when that whole crisis went down, he was there about 6 months after I was there, and I had already left. I was over in Dubai, and he was in Libya, and the whole war started in Libya, and he heard about it, and he was about 12 hours away from the airport. And everybody was like, oh, it'll be okay, no big deal, they have riots here, things happen. And he kind of listened to what people were saying, and he said, no, this is not okay. This is not a good situation. So he immediately got into the car, left, went to the airport, and he had to stand in a huge crowd of about 1,000 people like this for 12 hours, just kind of penguin walking. And eventually he got to the airplane and he got on the last plane out of Libya because he did not he did not he did not react the way that people would react just thinking it was normal. He was ready. He had a plan, which is what we need to do. We all need to have a plan. So, in a foreign country, the chances are that we are going to have to drive. At some point, if you're overseas, you're going to have to drive in a country where you're not used to driving. So, learning defensive driving skills is needed. And I always kind of put it this way: you need to learn how to cut people off without causing an accident if you want to get through a nasty traffic jam where you could be in danger if something's going down. Defensive driving, according to defensivedriving.org, they have a definition of defensive driving, which I thought was pretty good in an article that they published in June 2021. They said, this practice is a skill set that allows you to identify potential hazards and adapting your driving to prevent an accident by anticipating situations before they happen. So, and that's actually really true because when I would drive in Saudi Arabia, when I would drive in North Iraq and other countries, the Philippines, I I developed, and everybody develops this. We all develop it when we drive enough to where I could anticipate when somebody was going to do something before they would do it. And that's a big part of defensive driving. If you can't do that and you're just used to driving maybe here in the US or the UK or Australia where everybody obeys the rules of the road, then you will have a hard time driving in a country where they don't. But if you're in a foreign country, you need to be able to, and you need to get out of that country, you need to be able to drive because nobody is going to do that for you. All countries have warning signs when bad things are going to happen. And it is important to have a relationship with the locals and build friendships with good people so that they can warn you ahead of time when something is going to happen. Because they always get the news before we get the news. And they always get a different version of the news than what the local government puts out. So when you get the news, you should not sit, you should not wait, you should move immediately, like my friend over in Libya did. Immediately he moved and he had a plan and he got out of the country on the last airplane that was available. So always having a plan, always being ready, acting on that plan is something that we need to do when we're over in a foreign country. Even before we go, we need to have a plan. So you're going to have a plan of action, you're going to have defensive driving, and you're going to have good relationships with the locals. Those are the things that can save your life. Safety is always paramount, and readiness is something that we always need to have in our minds. If you are planning a trip to go overseas in a country that you think is risky, keep these tips in mind and have them in your head. Build a plan and don't go if you don't have a plan, because it could mean the difference between life and death.